At 23:40 on December 29, 1944, Major Carroll C. Smith crouched in the cramped cockpit of his P-61 Black Widow at McGuire Field, watching his radar operator track a contact moving at 180 knots through the black skies north of the Philippine Islands. Smith was 26 years old, with 43 combat missions and 4 confirmed kills to his name. The Japanese had sent 12 bombers to destroy the American airfields that night, and they had been attacking Mindoro every single night for 2 weeks. 334 air raid alerts in just 14 days. American engineers were racing to build 2 airfields to support the Lingayen Gulf invasion, and the Japanese understood exactly what those airfields meant. If American fighters could operate from Mindoro, they could cover the entire invasion force. The Japanese had to stop construction at any cost, sending bombers, kamikazes, anything that could carry explosives. The 418th Night Fighter Squadron had arrived at Mindoro just 3 days earlier, and Smith's squadron was the only thing standing between those bombers and 20,000 American troops sleeping in tents below. The pressure was suffocating. The P-61 Black Widow was unlike anything the Japanese had encountered before. It was the first American aircraft designed specifically for night combat, with a 66-foot wingspan. Twin Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines, producing 2,000 horsepower each, and a top speed of 366 miles per hour. But the real weapon wasn't the 4 20mm cannons mounted in the belly, it was the SCR-720 radar mounted in the nose, capable of detecting aircraft up to 5 miles away in complete darkness. The Japanese had no idea it existed. Their bombers flew at night because they believed darkness made them invisible. They were wrong. Lieutenant Philip Porter sat behind Smith in a separate compartment, watching a glowing screen that showed every aircraft within range. He had been tracking targets for 6 months and knew how to read the scope, how to vector Smith toward contacts, how to separate friendly aircraft from enemy bombers. But the mathematics were brutal. 1 P-61 versus 12 bombers meant that even if Smith shot down 3 or 4, the rest would still get through to bomb the airfields. Smith's fuel would last maybe 3 hours, and if he spent 10 minutes engaging each target, he could only intercept 3 bombers before returning to base. 9 bombers would get through, meaning hundreds or thousands of American casualties. At 23:42, Porter's voice crackled through the intercom with 4 separate contacts on the scope, all heading south toward Mindoro at different altitudes. Smith had to make a choice which bomber to pursue first, and whether his plan to intercept all 4 in one night was genius or suicide. He pushed the throttles forward, and the twin R2800 engines responded instantly as the Black Widow climbed at 2,000 feet per minute. Porter called out vectors, heading 035, altitude 8,000 feet, range for miles. Smith couldn't see anything through the canopy-just blackness. No moon, no stars, heavy clouds obscuring everything. This was why the Japanese had chosen tonight. Complete darkness meant their bombers were invisible to conventional fighters. But Smith wasn't flying a conventional fighter. The SCR-720 radar used a rotating parabolic dish in the nose that sent out microwave pulses. When those pulses hit an aircraft, they bounced back as glowing blips on Porter's scope, and he guided Smith toward the target with verbal corrections. Left 5 degrees, down 3 degrees, range 3 miles. The system worked because Porter was exceptional at his job. The Japanese bomber was a Mitsubishi G4M. The Americans called it Betsy, a twin-engine bomber with 2,000 horsepower, a crew of 7, and a bomb load of 1,760 pounds. But it had a critical weakness: no self-sealing fuel tanks. One burst from Smith's cannons would turn the bomber into a fireball. Smith closed to 1,000 yards, still relying entirely on his radar scope. At 500 yards, he finally saw it, a dark shape against slightly less dark clouds, the bomber's exhaust flames barely visible. He positioned the P-61 slightly below and behind the bomber, using the N6 gun sight to center the target in his reticle. At 400 yards, Smith armed the cannon's 800 rounds total, enough for approximately 40 seconds of sustained fire, but night fighter doctrine called for short, concentrated bursts. Get close, fire, exit. He squeezed the trigger. The 4 20mm cannons roared, tracers bridging the 400-yard gap in a fraction of a second. The shells hammered the Mitsubishi's right-wing root and fuselage, and then the night tore open as the bomber's fuel tanks ignited, turning the aircraft into a blinding supernova. Smith banked hard left, pulling away from the burning wreckage. "Scratch one," he said, his breath heavy in the mask. But there was no time for celebration. From the rear compartment, Porter's voice cut through the static. eerily calm and focused entirely on the glowing green sweep of his scope. Confirmed splash. Major reset. Vector 100, range for miles. He's breaking right. The mathematics of the intercept began again. Smith leveled the wings and pushed the throttles forward. The Black Widow hunted the next shadow. Over the next 40 minutes, Smith and Porter executed a masterclass in electronic warfare, stalking the Japanese formation using the darkness as a cloak. The second bomber fell at 23:55, the third at 0:10 by the time they closed on the fourth target. The Japanese formation had broken, the pilots realizing something unseen was slaughtering them from the dark. The fourth bomber tried to dive, banking erratically, but it didn't matter. The radar held its lock. Smith followed the vector, adjusted the gun sight, and fired. For passes, for trigger pulls, for confirmed kills. When Major Smith finally touched down at Mindoro at 1:30, the P-61 was running on fumes and its ammunition bays were empty. Smith had saved the airfield, but more importantly, he had proven a concept. The Japanese realized that night, terrified and confused, that the darkness no longer belonged to them. The Black Widow had spun its web, the Lingan Gulf invasion proceeded on schedule, and the airfields at Mindoro became the foundation for American air power in the Philippines. For the rest of the war, Japanese bombers flew their night missions knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the Black Widow was waiting, and they never felt safe again. This was Major Carroll C. Smith, 26 years old, 43 combat missions, 4 confirmed kills in a single night. The Japanese couldn't believe one P-61 was hunting them, until 4 bombers disappeared in 80 minutes.